Hello everyone! Welcome to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. I am always surprised by how many people watch my videos because they are all over the place, but thank you for being here. Today I wanted to just chat about books because I miss BookTube. I always miss it when I have had a little while away from it, and the last time I filmed a video I was still trying to get my voice back, so I didn't get to talk nearly as much as I wanted to, which probably surprises any of you who saw the video. My videos are always pretty long. But I just wanted to kind of talk about what I have been reading, what I'm hoping to read soon, just a few of my reading goals, just a general catch up. So I hope all of you are doing well. Comment below and tell me what you're reading right now and what you think of it, because I am looking for recommendations all the time, of course, because I'm on BookTube, but also I just love to hear from you. So let me know. One of my main goals right now is to finish reading all of the books on my currently reading shelf on Goodreads. For most people, this would not be that big of a goal, but because I am really terrible about starting books and not finishing them a lot at the same time, I have quite a few books on my currently reading stack on Goodreads. This means that I started out with, I believe it was 23 books when I made this goal, and that was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. I posted it on Twitter, so I should just go look, but I don't remember. It's been a few weeks. And I'm very proud of myself because I have finished 2 books, and I'm already almost finished with 2 more books, one of which I am thrilled about. So ready to have it done, so ready to have it over with. And I just wanted to kind of talk with you about the books that I finished reading, and then the books that I am reading, and the books I'm about to be reading. So the book that I just finished reading this past weekend, I believe, was this one, which is called So You Want to Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. I thought it was very excellently written. I really don't feel like I can weigh in on any of the ways that the subject matter is handled. I personally found this to be incredibly educational, very insightful, very important, and I'm very, very glad that I read it. I don't have a rating for it because I feel like a book like this doesn't really need to be rated, especially by me, but I would highly recommend it. I think everybody should read it, and yeah, that's really all I have to say about it. I'm very, very glad I read it, and this will not be the last book of its kind that I will read because I feel like there's a lot more that I need to do to educate myself, and this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. So I know I've got a lot of reading to do. That's a goal of mine this year and every year for the rest of my life. The next book that I just finished reading is one that was on my Kindle, and so I cannot show it to you, but it is called The In-Between Places, and that one I'm going to double check. I have the title here in front of me, so I'm going to double check the whole title because it's actually quite long. I do know it is by Cat Armstrong, who is a woman in ministry that I very much respect. The full title is The In-Between Place Where Jesus Changes Your Story. So if you couldn't tell, it is a Christian book. But basically the whole concept behind this book is it's talking about how to find God and really sort of find encouragement as well in an in-between place in your life. It's generally going to be a very difficult time, a transition time, anytime you feel stuck, like all of those sorts of places are what she's talking about. I personally found this to be an incredibly helpful book to read. This past year and this year have both been very, very difficult for me, and I would even say the year before that. It's just been like a rough time, and a lot of things haven't gone the way I expected them to or perhaps wanted them to, and so I feel like it was very much needed, especially the beginning of this year. And I started it in January. I should have finished it much more quickly because it's very easy to read. It's very good. I just have terrible memories sometimes about things, and I forgot I was reading it, which is very sad. I don't know how I do that, but this is why I'm trying to keep track of reading a certain amount of books that are smaller, which was a goal of mine earlier this year. But my currently reading stack got very big this year, and I'm really trying to cut that out, especially now because I am working full time and I just don't have time to juggle 20 plus books anymore. So I would highly recommend The In-Between Place by Cat Armstrong. I thought it was excellent how she went back and forth between different stories in the Bible to sort of explain what she was talking about. I feel like she did this in an approachable way that was very, I feel like that's a really important thing to do for a lot of Christian books, because I feel like sometimes what happens is you have these people who write in such a way that it's just not approachable, because there's a lot of information that scholars or Christian authors will just take for granted that the person who's reading it knows that. And I feel like Cat Armstrong doesn't do that. So I think that's good. However, I will say the one tiny complaint I have is that I do feel like sometimes it was a little too basic to me, but I think that's partially just because I grew up going to church, and so some of the things that she said I have heard before, but I think that's kind of inescapable with Christian books sometimes, especially when you've kind of grown up with that information kind of every single time you go to church and you're reading books and all of that sort of stuff. But I would highly recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. I would give it a little more than 4 stars probably, but that's just what I put in on Goodreads. I think it's an excellent book. If you are religious, I would definitely recommend it. And yeah, well, specifically Christian religious, but I feel like, you know, even if you aren't Christian, you might enjoy some aspects of the book, of course. So, all right, so the books I'm currently really focusing on reading, trying to finish, that I've been reading for far too long. I'll start with one that is just kind of embarrassing, but I'm sure some of you relate to this. The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. This is a book that I started in a read-along that I was attempting to host in April. Yes, April. It is now October. So this is more of a spring/summer book, I would say. So I didn't pick the most excellent time to finish reading this, but I just wanted to do it. And it's a very enjoyable book. It has a lot of great parts to it, but I think it's a combination of me knowing the plot because I've seen the movie, and then it also just not being something I'm in the mood for. That combined just made it to where I have not felt inclined to pick this up very much. That being said, I am pretty close to finishing it. It's a very short, very easy to read book. You can see the text is not that big, or not that small, I meant. And so I'm very close to finishing it. I just need to buckle down and do it. And so I've been trying to read like a chapter at least a week, making good progress. Definitely hoping to finish this soon. For those of you who haven't seen my video where I talked about this, when I first started reading this, The Enchanted April is a story about a group of women who just didn't even really know each other except for 2 beforehand, that decide to go to Italy to vacation at this like old, it's either a villa or a palace. It's been so long since I started, I can't even remember, but it's basically this really gorgeous place in Italy. They're staying at this house together in the country, and magical things happen to all of their lives. It's not actual magic, but it's kind of like, I would say, kind of has a magical sort of tinge to it, kind of a magical feel, because their whole lives are transformed because of this trip. So it's a very fun book to read. It's a nice travel book, but it is kind of, I wouldn't say slow, but it's not like a page turner by any means. So it is very good. Love the movie. Loving the book so far, but I wouldn't say I'm enjoying it quite as much as I had hoped I would. That's what I'll have to say. But hoping to finish it soon. You can see I've got a few annotations in there, so a lot of quotable parts, but I will keep you updated when I finally finish it. The next book I am working on, you've all seen it, Thunder on the Right, Mary Stewart. I've talked about this before. I won't go into it because I've talked about it, but I do have an update. I only have a few chapters left, so that is one I'm hoping to finish very, very soon. Very excited about that. Probably is going to take place of The Ivy Tree as my very least favorite book by this author, even though Mary Stewart is one of my favorite authors. I talk about her on my channel all the time. This book has just been, frankly, a snooze fest, and I would not recommend it to anyone because the suspense is just not there, which is kind of her trademark. The romance fell flat, and the setting isn't even interesting. Usually she has her books set in really, really cool places, whether that's in Italy and France, like very romantic travel locations. This takes place, I think it's in France. I can't even remember. I believe it's France. It's on like the border, I think, of France and Spain, and that's why I'm kind of confused. But basically, it is just not that interesting. Would not recommend. But I'm going to finish it. I want to read all of Mary Stewart's books, but yeah. Not loving it, but I'm almost finished with it. The next book I have to talk about, I do not have a physical copy of it because I'm listening to the audiobook. I have been trekking through this book since January because I really wanted to read a lot of very big books this year. If you looked at my goal book or you watched my goal video, you would know that. This book is probably one of my least favorite books I have ever read. I don't think that it's necessarily because the book itself is bad, but I think it is not a book that is for me, Mary Margaret. I really, talk about a snooze fest. I have just been bored to tears with it, and I've tried really hard to like it, but I just really don't. But by the time I realized that was going to be the case, I had already invested so much time in actually listening to this audiobook that I really didn't want to just stop reading it. So I am 95% through Don Quixote. And I have read rave reviews, heard rave reviews from so many booktubers that were just like, this is such a great book. I love it so much. I love the farce. I think it's amazing and it's hilarious. Anyway, all I have to say about Don Quixote is I would not recommend it personally. I do realize that a lot of people love Don Quixote because the reviews on Goodreads are largely positive. All right, things probably look a little different because I found out my camera stopped recording while I was in the middle of talking. Basically, what I was talking about is that Don Quixote is just something that has overall very positive reviews on Goodreads, but clearly I'm missing something because I just am not enjoying it at all, and I only have 5% left, so I very much doubt that's going to change. I think the problem with it is that it's very outdated in a lot of ways, which obviously that makes sense. It's a very old book, but the way that these people in nobility and things, well, pretty much everybody makes fun of Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, who are people they think are stupid and crazy or whatever the case may be. They just make fun of them and like play pranks on them throughout the book. And not only that, but I just really don't think it's interesting at all. And I feel like the author, if he wanted to write a philosophy book, should have just written about philosophy instead of just kind of throwing the philosophy statements in there. And I just feel like that just kind of doesn't make any sense. I know it's a farce, and that's kind of the point, is that Don Quixote is this person who's someone you can't really take seriously, but he has very wise things to say, same as Sancho Panza, but I just don't understand. I feel like it just swings back and forth between too many different things, and I personally need at least a little bit of plot that makes sense, or some character development that feels true and authentic, very realistic, and I don't really have anything that's kind of drawing me into the book. And for me, that's just something that has to be there, and so I think it's just a miss for me. And I really don't know what I want to rate it because The Three Musketeers I gave 2 stars, which I very much disliked. That was the beginning of this year. But, you know, this is even less interesting than The Three Musketeers. Even though The Three Musketeers had so many problems, I would still give it a higher rating than Don Quixote. It's just quite a mess. Don Quixote has a lot of problems too. There are some things written in that book that I was just like, that is very unfortunate. So anyway, almost finished with it. Very excited about that. Can you tell? But I've been talking very negatively for a little while, so I'd like to talk positively. Just want to rave that I am absolutely loving Middlemarch so far. I'm very sad and disappointed with myself that I never read her books sooner, George Eliot's I mean, because I am slightly obsessed. I think it's so well written. I love the quotes. It's hilarious. It's insightful. It's thoughtful. The character development is brilliant. I feel like it shows all of these human motivations and the way that the mind works for all sorts of different personalities in a very brilliant way. Forgive the jingling. I think my dog is about to head her way in here. She's like, "What are you doing, Mary Margaret?" Understandably. But I am thoroughly enjoying this. Cannot wait to review it. It is so wonderful, and I'm only 9 chapters in. As I've said before, I just started teaching this year full time, and it is quite a demanding job in the sense that I don't very much get time off, unfortunately. But, you know, there's always the holiday break, right? The last thing I'm going to talk about is a book that I just started the audiobook for on Scribd. I use Scribd all the time for audiobooks. I'm not sponsored. I just find it very, very helpful. I'm looking at the title and the author's name because it's new to me. So I would like to pull it up so I make sure that I am telling you the right thing. But this is another Christian book, and I am finding it to be just what I needed at the moment. This book is called Is It Just Me? And there's like a subtitle, Learning to Trust God in the Middle of Hurts, Doubts, and Fears. And it's by someone named Grace Elaine Valentine. And this book is really, really helpful for me right now because it's talking about all of these sorts of things that we all struggle with, but it's talking about how we need to do a lot better about being real with people about what we're dealing with instead of trying to be like, oh, I'm just really busy right now and my life's really good. I'm just, you know, everything is all peachy keen and it's great. And we kind of present this front to people of our lives being perfect when they're not, like nobody's is. And so it's talking a lot about doing better about that. But it also goes into detail with a lot of different struggles that I think we all can relate to, but I know I myself very much relate to. So I have really been enjoying this, and it's a very short audiobook. It's only 5 hours, so I'm almost halfway through it, and I have a feeling I'm going to finish it this week. So hopefully by the end of this weekend. So anyway, I have talked far too much, so I'm going to stop talking now, even though there are even more things I'd like to talk about. But I would love to know what you're reading. As I said, I'm going to show you my little cutie who just came to join. She very much needs a bath. She is very bad about getting into mud and other things she shouldn't get into when she's in the yard. So she's a very stinky little dachshund right now. But I hope you are all doing very well. It's good to talk to you and not be losing my voice at the moment anyway. And I hope you're enjoying your first day of October or your first days of October whenever you watch this. I've missed you all. I can't wait to catch up on some videos over the weekend. And I enjoy talking with all of you. Happy reading, and I will see you hopefully very, very soon. Bye. Say bye-bye, Lucy. Can you say bye-bye? Okay.